Okay.
This is now part two of our lesson today. So there are 12 sons, and then now we're going to follow the story for the remainder of the chapter, or remainder of our class, really following the line of Joseph and that particular history. Because when you study the story of Joseph, it's really very Christ-like. Just be careful of the cords here. There are a lot of Christ-like qualities in Joseph as we go through. All right, so now if you'd like to open your Bibles to chapter 37. Chapter 37, verse 1. Jacob dwelt in the land of his father's sojournings, in the land of Canaan. This is the history of the family of Jacob. Joseph, being 17 years old, was shepherding the flock with his brothers. He was a lad with the sons of Bilhah and Zilpah, his father's wives, and Joseph brought an ill report to them to their father. Now Israel, / Jacob, loved Joseph more than any other of his children, because he was the son of his old age, and he made him a long robe with sleeves. Remember from Sunday school? This was Joseph and the coat of many colors. Here's how the story begins. They're all out doing what they do as shepherds, and somehow his brothers, were goofing around, sloughing off, weren't doing their fair share. So Joseph goes back to the old man and says, I'm out there doing all the work, schlepping around, and these guys are doing nothing but goofing around, playing football, tag, whatever. And I guess to show his appreciation and his love, not for the tattletale, but for his appreciation and love for Joseph, he makes him this beautiful coat of many colors. Now, you got to remember, back in those days, everything was drab. There were not a lot of colors. Things were very earth tone, let's put it that way. Unless you were royalty. Kings and pharaohs, they were able to afford these things. So he made Joseph this coat of many colors. And when his other brothers, first of all, found out what he had said to their father about their behavior, and then when they saw that coat that the father had given to their brother, they never got a coat, that began to well up in them, and they became very, very jealous. And so they began to kind of began to get together and say, what are we going to do? We got to teach that pipsqueak something. And what they decided to do was simply this. They were going to kill him. But the older brother said, oh, you can't do that. If you kill him, that's wrong. So what they decided to do, if you take a look at verse 25 of chapter 37, then they sat down to eat, and looking up, they saw a caravan of Ishmaelites, distant cousins, coming from Gilead with their camels bearing gum, balm, and myrrh on their way to carry it down to Egypt. Then Judah said to his brothers, what profit is it if we slay our brother and conceal his blood? Come, let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, and let not our hand be upon him, for he is our brother, our own flesh. And that's what happened. So as these Ishmaelites were passing by on this caravan route to go to Egypt, they made them some kind of an offer that you could use this 17-year-old boy. He's got good muscles, good physique. He can do all kinds of manual labor. He's no good to us. And so they sold him, and off then goes the caravan. And by the way, keep this in mind, this is how Joseph now gets into Egypt, because the bulk of his adult life is going to be in Egypt. All of it, really. So this is now from the Ishmaelites, the caravan route. This is how he gets down into Egypt. In the meantime, the brothers say to themselves, they had a little conscience, when we go back home, what are we going to tell our father? He's going to do a head count and say, wait a minute, someone's missing. And so they decided that they would take one, I guess they took the coat off before he left. They would take one of the goats and kill it, take the coat, tear it up, and dip the coat in blood. And then go home saying, oh, Dad, Father, a wild animal charged Joseph. And look what he did. He tore him to pieces. He tore that beautiful coat. Look at the blood. So again, when we take a look at some of these stories in the Bible, there's really, you can see there's sin everywhere. There's always a little, they're trying to pull the wool over. Adam and Eve did that. Everybody else has done it. They're trying to now trick their father, and actually they're going to succeed for a long, long time. So if you look at let's look at verse 31. Then they took Joseph's robe and killed a goat and dipped the robe in the blood. And they sent the long robe with sleeves and brought it to their father and said, this we have found. See now whether it is your son's robe or not. And he recognized it and said, it is my son's robe. A wild beast has devoured him. Joseph is without doubt torn to pieces. Then Jacob rent his garments and put sackcloth upon his loins and mourned for his son many days. All his sons and his daughters rose up to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted, saying, no, I shall go down to Sheol to my son mourning. Thus his father wept for him. Now, keep that in mind, because Jacob never really got over the death of his son Joseph. Even many, 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 many years later, when the great famine arose, and the house of Jacob then goes down to Egypt to get food, and he's still mourning the fact that his precious son Joseph is dead. Yes, ma'am. Sheol is a Hebrew word, really a place of the dead. It's kind of a polite word for hell, a place of the dead.
The NIV translation is until I join my son in the grave.
Yeah. Actually, the Hebrew word Sheol, and that's kind of like, it's an Old Testament concept, because at this point in time, there really isn't that kind of concept of heaven and hell. Yes, he's going to mourn.
Yeah, until his days on earth are run.
Until he joins them. I go to some cemeteries, and you see on some of the tombstones, together forever. And it's kind of like together forever. So he's going to mourn him. He won't be comforted. His sons and daughters want to comfort him, but he refuses to be comforted because he wants to keep that remembrance, that hurt, that emptiness alive in his life. Now, psychologically, I guess people could come in and do a little study. What did that ultimately mean? What kind of quality of life then did the rest of the family have? Because if he always had this loneliness, this emptiness in his soul, what kind of a father, grandfather, whatever, what kind of a person was he as the days moved on? Just one of those things that we don't know about. Any other questions? So Joseph then is in this Ishmaelite caravan going down to Egypt. Now, we come to chapter 39. Now Joseph was taken down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, the captain of the guard, an Egyptian, bought him from the Ishmaelites who had brought him down there. Here's the key. The Lord was with Joseph, and he became a successful man. And he was in the house of his master the Egyptian, and his master saw the Lord was with him, and that the Lord caused all that he did to prosper in his hands. So Joseph found favor in his sight and attended him, and he made him overseer of his house and put him in charge of all that he had. So just think momentarily. Here's this 17-year-old boy who was despised and hated by his brothers. They first put him in a pit, and then they decide that they're going to fake his death, but they're going to sell him. He comes down to Egypt, and what happens? Because the Lord is with him, somehow he's got the Midas touch. Whatever he does prospers. Potiphar notices that, and Potiphar says, I've been looking for a man just like you. I need someone to take charge of my household and to run it for me, because I'm too busy being the captain of the guard for Pharaoh. And that's what happens. So Potiphar brings him into his house and gives him all that authority to run his house. Look at verse 6. Actually, the second half of 6. Now Joseph was handsome and good looking. And this is going to be a problem. This is going to be a problem. Let me just read on a little bit so you get the idea. Verse 7. After a time, his master's wife cast her eyes upon Joseph and said, Lie with me. But he refused and said to his master's wife, Lo, having me, my master has no concern about anything in the house, and he has put everything that he has in my hand. He is not greater in this house than I am, nor has he kept back anything from me except yourself, because you are his wife. How then can I do this great wickedness and sin against God? And although she spoke to Joseph day after day, he would not listen to her, to lie with her, or to be with her. So, we're going to say in a moment, hell hath no fury, like a woman scorned. So there's this handsome stud, 17-year-old buff boy, handsome guy in the house, and she's got this idea, I want to take him to bed and make love to him and have my way with him. And so she approaches him day after day, and he says, nothing to do. How can I do this to your husband? He's given me this big trust. How can I sin against God? Verse 11. But one day, when he went into the house to do his work, and none of the men of the house was there in the house, she caught him by the garment, saying, Lie with me. But he left his garment in her hand and fled and got out of the house. And when she saw that he had left his garment in her hand and had fled out of the house, she called to the men of her household and said to them, See, he has brought among us a Hebrew to insult us. He came in to me to lie with me, and I cried out with a loud voice. And when he heard that I lifted up my voice and cried, he left his garment with me and fled and got out of the house. Then she laid up his garment by her until his master came home, and she told him the same story, saying, The Hebrew servant whom you brought among us came in to insult me, but as soon as I lifted up my voice and cried, he left his garment with me and fled out of the house. When his master heard the words which his wife spoke to him, This is the way your servant treated me, his anger was kindled. And Joseph's master took him and put him into prison, the place where the king's prisoners were confined, and he was there in prison. But, 21, but the Lord was with Joseph, and showed him steadfast love, and gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. You understand what's happened here? She now, she said, look, I've been wronged to herself. I've been wronged. I've been made to look like a fool because this guy wouldn't do what I wanted. And so she said, well, I'll get him. And she did. She concocted this story. There were no witnesses. She was shrewd. She concocted the story. And what happened? Joseph, hated, despised, sold off by his brothers, comes down into Egypt, finds favor, but then is kind of hated and despised by his master's wife, and the master throws him now into prison. (22) And the keeper of the prison committed to Joseph's care all the prisoners who were in the prison. And whatever was done there, he was the doer of it. The keeper of the prison paid no heed to anything that was in Joseph's care, because the Lord was with him. And whatever he did, the Lord made it prosper. So even in prison, there was something that the jailer saw in this young boy that would be even a benefit while serving out his sentence. You see, I'm a firm believer that God prepares people to receive him. Let's just take Potiphar and the jailer. Both of these gentlemen, who are no dummies, recognize something in Joseph. And that may be, I'm not doubting it, but I believe that God instilled in them both a warmness, an openness, a welcomeness to see in Joseph qualities that God placed in his character, so that Potiphar made him in charge of his house. And once he got into prison, even the jailer said, you can help me out here and take care of some of these disgruntled guys down here.
Listen.
And you see, I think that's the same way that how God works today. How God works today. I think, first of all, I think if we're involved in some kind of a work, I think God prepares people that we're going to interact with to be open to our message, whatever it might be. Let me tell you a story, or just a general story. As a pastor, there are many things that a pastor does. There are many things that a pastor must talk about during the course of, let's say, a year. One of the things that a pastor does is go out and visit people who are either A, prospective members, or members who are members, but they're like, delinquent, no show, AWOL. So I've been amazed in my 41 years of ministry that when I go to see these people, I have, from a human point of view, a little angst. Will I be prepared to answer whatever they're going? I don't know what they're going to say, but am I going to be able to answer them satisfactorily? Because I don't want to do the kingdom of God any injustice because of my timidity or my ill-preparedness. I have found over the years that when you go see these people, I believe that God even prepares their heart to receive the pastor. And even if the pastor's coming to say, we've missed you at church, we've missed you at communion, well, what can we do to help you better come into the church, the body of Christ? And I've been surprised, because sometimes just knowing some of the facts, I've gone into situations where I thought I may get at both barrels. And I'm surprised at some of the things that people say. Another lesson that I believe God prepares people to hear the message that the prophet brings. And then by the same token, I've always counted on the Lord. Okay, now give me the words I need that are not judgmental, not abrasive, that are loving and welcoming. Give me the words I need. So you see, just that concept, the Lord was with him. And I think that's just one little slice of the pie of how God is with us. I've talked to many people over these years, And I've had people come to me and say, I was able to talk to so-and-so, and we actually talked about Jesus, and I was able to tell him about, he's being my Savior, he died for, all this stuff. Where did that come from? God gave you the words to speak that message, because the Lord is with you. And the Lord doesn't want any of his children to fail. He wants them to prosper. And as we see with the story of Joseph, Joseph did prosper. Although it kind of like he moved 2 steps forward and then he moved back 3. But it's all for a lesson. Even though his own flesh and blood, even though his own boss kind of meant it for bad, God meant it for good. And through those experiences, God allowed Joseph to move forward. Any comments? Let's take a quick break here.